Okay, so I've just walked through 10 spiders webs here. If you see them on me, yell out. Basically, I wanted to talk about how life is getting very expensive and we can grow our own. I have heard people say blueberries are one of the more difficult berries to grow. I'm giving it a try in this garden bed. However, my potted blueberry has been one of the biggest success, even when we were in an apartment block in Sydney and we had very limited room. The conditions were quite harsh. We could keep that alive in a self-watering pot, and it was a huge win, and we actually got quite a lot of money's worth of blueberries each year off that specific plant. And I'm hoping with quite a few more plants here, we'll be getting heaps and heaps of blueberries in the long run once they're established. But let's go have a look at some of the other berries that I've planted in the hopes of, again, being a little bit more self-sufficient than using the supermarkets where berries are very, very expensive. And the little pots that we buy, they've got like 150 grams. You're paying $50, $60, $80 a kilo. When they're well priced, it's just not a great system. Okay, so I hear you ask, what is this thing over here? This is, in fact, a raspberry as well. It is an Atherton raspberry, which is an Australian raspberry. I think they're kind of native to Queensland, but I'm pretty close. I'm in northern New South Wales, so it's not too much of a drama. And this guy, apart from being enormous, like when I bought it, it was just this tiny little twig. It has gone gangbusters. It's gone really, really well. And while we're heading into winter, it's like kind of the end of autumn. I don't know if we have a month to go, or I should probably check that. This guy has flowers on him. And I think it's because we've had such mild weather. He is basically saying, oh, you know what, this is pretty good. I'm gonna produce some fruit. Quite spiky, so that is something to keep in mind. But Atherton raspberry, kind of native Australian raspberry, a really good option if you, like me, are kind of in the northern New South Wales, Queensland region of things, and you want a raspberry, because I feel like from what I've seen, a lot of the raspberries prefer those colder winters, which we get less of. So there you go. But let's have a look at a more traditional option. Now, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this because it's looking a little bit sad at the moment. However, this is my boysenberry, and it is very, very spiky indeed. It actually has runners running down the garden bed. The Atherton is at the other end of this garden bed, and I thought I'd give both of these a try. The boysenberry is running along the fence. The one thing that I've really noticed with this is it sends its runners out and then it tries to get them down back into the ground, obviously to get more nutrients. And you know, it's a pretty harsh condition here while we do have that milder weather, and this seems to be going okay. Certainly no fruit yet, but if you're thinking about kind of an additional extra option that you could give a try, check out the boysenberry. And I think the loganberry is meant to be the more direct mix between raspberry and blackberry, and we've got one of those as well. But this is another option in kind of one of those hybrid kind of berries. All right, it's a little bit dark and dreary over in this corner of the garden. I've got a kiwi berry, which is a kind of very unusual berry. It's like a kiwi fruit, but in berry form. It doesn't have that kind of awful hairy skin. And we've got some strawberries, and I'm having a lot of problems with the strawberries keeping them growing, particularly in this garden bed. This one's gone okay. This little runner off another one that died is going okay. I've put them in all over the place, hoping they do well. Maybe not enough sun, maybe it's the soil. Either way, it's been a real struggle getting those strawberries going. Okay, in a nice little bit of sun, which is nice to see, we've got my thornless blackberry, and this has gone quite well, as you can see here. I've tried to train it up a little bit. It doesn't have thorns, so it's a lot more forgiving. Like if you've got kids and you're worried about them tearing themselves up on something really thorny, like, you know, most of the other things I've shown you so far, very valid concern. And the thornless blackberry will do the job. It's growing well. When it grows through the fence, gets eaten by the wallabies, so that is a little bit of an issue. It does seem to be quite an attractive plant for a lot of pests. It gets eaten a lot, but it's still growing well. I'm still really happy with this option. This is probably what I'd recommend putting in if you're in a situation like me around that Port Macquarie region and you want to try something, because this is the most successful of those fairly traditional options as far as I can tell. But I'm certainly no expert, and I'm still waiting for my first season of fruit, so I might be talking too soon. I almost forgot these ones. Cranberry, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it is my cranberry. And this has been going quite well. It's kind of got this, it's almost like a ferny style growing habit. I've got to do a bit more research to see what this likes. And behind it here is a loganberry. I'm again fairly sure, yeah, loganberry, cross between a raspberry and a blackberry. It's not doing that well. Maybe it needs more sun or something like that. It hasn't really spread. It hasn't been particularly successful. Obviously this branch is kind of like off along the ground there, not doing very much. They seem to be getting eaten quite a lot. But yeah, probably not one that I'd give another go to. There are other things that have been more successful that I'd add a second one of before I added another loganberry. But an interesting idea because it is that raspberry / blackberry hybrid from what I understand. Ignore the enormous mess behind me. As you can see here, this is our blueberry that came with us from Sydney when we were in an apartment. We growed it very successfully. This is why I kind of am always surprised when I hear people say that blueberries are hard to grow. I do think that this self-watering pot plant, which you basically just drain out any extra water when it's really rainy like it's been recently, and as long as you've given it the good soil and an acidic soil, it seems to go really well. And we last year, or this year I should say, had an enormous crop off this. We would have got 10, 15 punnets worth of blueberries off this tiny little plant here. Now I'm probably going to keep it in a pot. I've been looking for a pot to expand it into, like a bigger pot, but it's very hard to find a really good quality self-watering pot that is kind of an upgrade from this one. And as a result, it's still in this pot, but while it's doing well, we're just going to keep it in that way. We're going to maintain it and we'll see what else we can get out of it in the next couple of years until we find that bigger pot. Because when you're onto a good thing, keep it going. You don't need to change too much because you do risk really destroying the progress you've made. Okay, let's talk about the mulberry. The mulberry is a tree. It is, again, a berry. You won't see it in the supermarket simply because they're not very easy to transport. They don't last long the way that other berries that we do generally buy do. And as a result, it's a great one to grow yourself. It's more of a tree or a shrub than some of the other berries, which are more viney. And as you can see here, this has not been going that well. I've just added an enormous amount of good soil around it with a whole heap of mulch to kind of capture a lot of that moisture and hopefully get it off to a better start. I've put a bigger fence around it to keep the wallabies out, and hopefully we can get this growing really well. I feel like probably my safest bets as far as what I'm putting in is a mulberry. I think if you've got lots of room, mulberries are a good choice. If you haven't got lots of room, maybe they're a harder addition to add to your garden. But as far as these things go, we used to pick fruit off them in basically a local park when we were in Sydney, and that was pretty magical. And so the opportunity to grow them myself and to be able to do the same thing is really, really attractive. And I think if I was only to put in a couple of berries, it'd probably be like the blueberries and the mulberries, and I'd see how I go with those. But again, that's because I've got quite a lot of room, so putting a tree in isn't an issue. Now this is actually a cool little addition here that we put in originally. This is a currant, and this is a black currant, and we had a red currant over there just out of sight, which is dead. But my black currant is going quite well. It has been really attacked by pests, and at one point it lost all its leaves, but it's grown back quite nicely since then. I think it is the little, not the caterpillars, it's the crickets and the grasshoppers that are a real problem on this plant that really eat it back. And that is unfortunate, but it's going strong. We've got a fence around it for the wallabies again, because they are a concern, and it's going quite well. And so that is a brief overview of everything that we're growing in the berry side of things. I've probably missed a couple of things, but that is a quick look. If there's anything I've missed, particularly for in like a zone 10A or 10B, that you'd recommend for me, let me know, because I am really willing to try almost anything at this stage, as long as it's not too pricey. And I'm always looking for new ideas, because that's what it's all about. I think a bit of trial and error, see what works for you, and that's where all the fun lies. So yeah, tell me what your favorite berry is to grow and to eat, and if there are any suggestions you have for me.